Hey, this is Ryan with Love Farm and the homesteadconsultant.com. Today I'm going to be making self-watering beds or wicking beds, and I'm making those out of galvanized troughs, water troughs. And I wanted to give an overview because the process that I'm going to be using today will work in most containers that are deep enough. And I wanted to give people an idea of how this whole thing happens and how it gets put together. The galvanized watering troughs I really like. They tend to be a little more expensive, but they look nice and they work really well. So I want to give you an overview of that as I work through building them today. Here's where I'm getting started. I'm using it's a 6 foot long by 2 foot wide by 2 foot high watering trough, galvanized watering trough, so it's watertight. And on this side, it's going directly on the ground because we didn't have a lot of room to raise it up. Over on the far side over there, that one's going to be off the ground a little bit, which I prefer just to keep things from rusting and so that you can maintain underneath them if you need to. However, this one is going to be on the ground. Inside, I'm going to start by using cinder blocks turned up like that. And that's going to be my reservoir, and I'll show you some more while I actually do the build, and we'll do some time lapse through the actual build to show you how those are going to look and come into play. And then on the back side here, I've got that pipe. That's the overflow pipe. We can also turn that down in the winter to drain the water out so that we don't have any ongoing issues with freezing or something like that. So we can drain the water out in the winter and not cause damage to the system. I am going to show you a part here. You can see this is the overflow, and I'm leaving a couple inch gap here behind here. This is all going to be covered in landscape fabric, so nothing should be able to get down to that drain, but I'm leaving a gap so that there's enough space behind there for water to get out, and so it doesn't get clogged up or slowed down. So I'm putting this weed block down, and I'm going to use it in such a way that I've got these, since the cinder blocks were staggered, you can see over here where they're staggered left to right, and we've got these spaces. So I'm using those spaces and pushing the weed barrier down in. Basically, the weed barrier is keeping the sand that I'm going to put in next from gumming up the system, and so that there can be a proper water table in the bottom. So we'll have a water reservoir in the bottom and between these blocks in the middle there, where water can fill up, but we're going to put sand down in these voids in several spots, and the water will wick up that sand and then hit the soil. We're going to put another layer of this geotextile or weed barrier in before finishing it up. So once the sand is in, then we'll put another barrier of another layer of weed barrier on top, and then it'll be the soil on top of that. I'm also going to do another layer of weed barrier on that side, but I'm going to put the sand in these voids first, and then I'll put the next layer on, and you'll see that in the hyperlapse or the time lapse footage. So we have gotten the sand layer down in. Now we're putting another layer of weed block on top of the sand. We're going to put the soil in the middle and then push it out to the side and lift the weed block as we go. That's going to keep the sand and the soil separate. A quick note, this is my fill pipe, And you can see I've cut the bottom at an angle. That way when it sits down on the bottom of the tank, the water can come out. So I'm going to put water in at the top. It's going to come out the bottom and fill the reservoir, and then that will overflow from the overflow. The overflow, I'm limited to a 3/4 inch because of how this is built, because I already have a threaded connection there. But the inlet, I'm making a 2-inch. I recommend 2-inch or larger. And then on the top, eventually I'm going to put like a window screen, and you can get a coupler, like a 2-inch coupler, and you just push that over the window screen, and that locks everything in place, and it keeps mosquitoes and things from getting laid down in the water, or from frogs or other things getting trapped inside. Well, here it is finished. So as you watched us build it, we've got cinder block on the bottom, staggered left to right, so we've got pockets. Then we put weed barrier down, and in the weed barrier we put sand that gets all the way down into the into where the water reservoir is going to be. That sand is going to wick water up, and we also have some of those cavities left without sand. And so then right around here is where the top of the blocks is. And then we have another layer of weed barrier on top of the sand, so that the sand and the soil that we have here don't get mixed together. And then we filled with soil. Really, you're not supposed to have more than 12 inches of soil, or you may end up with dry soil, too dry of soil on top. So it's 8-inch cinder blocks plus a bit of sand to get it to right around 12 inches. And then we have the soil that doesn't quite come to the top. It comes to right around here. So all in all, we end up having about 12 inches of soil, 12 inches of or maybe more like 10 inches of reservoir. This is our fill station. So if the water level gets low, we fill that. As I showed before, it's cut at an angle so that as it sits on the bottom, water can get out. And then we have our overflow pipe. So we basically fill until that overflows. The overflow pipe needs to be cut to be a little bit, just a little bit down below where the top of the water reservoir or the cinder blocks would be. And then something that we've done with this is it can actually be tipped. So in the winter, when we want to drain it out, I can tip it and drain it. The other thing I can do is if I was doing just annuals and I wanted to kill off all the seed bank and things within the soil each year, so if I wanted to get rid of weeds, I could put a coupler on there and run that to the top, and then I could actually flood this bed, use that, fill it up, flood it. That would kill off all the weeds and other plants in there, again, if I was doing annuals. And it's an easy way to reset your beds. I hope that helps you get an idea of how to make these wicking beds and what some of the principles are that allow the water to flow or to wick up through the beds and to the soil. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'm happy to help. If you have suggestions, I've found that these cinder blocks, I've never seen anyone use them, but I've used them quite a few times and they work really, really well. They actually help with the wicking or capillary action of the water from the bottom. So I find them to be a very useful tool, and they're very inexpensive. They're about $2 a piece. It takes about 8 to put in the bottom, so that's $16 worth of material in the bottom for that water reservoir, and they work really well. They last forever. So I'm very happy with those. If you're in the Tennessee area, or if you want a distance consult, you can reach out to me. Go to my website at thehomesteadconsultant.com, and you can find all my information there, my contact information, my phone and email. So you're welcome to reach out. I do consultations. I do on-site consultations. and property walks and evaluations for people in the Tennessee area, in southern Kentucky area. And I also do system and site design for people who are close enough for me to be able to walk the property. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.